Good evening, everybody. We Paddy from across the shop, and I hope you're all doing well. This is my favourite time of the month. This is when we get to interrogate Ben on the new knife that's about to hit the shops. I've got Justin top right. Well, I don't know where it is in your camera, but we've got Justin, we've got Dan, and we've got Ben. Just the usual four. Quiet, informal chat.
Well, it's great to see you guys again. Do you guys want to chat about Blade Show West for a little bit? I did just get back from there, and I think a lot of the knife guys would be interested in that. It was historically held in Portland, Oregon, but they had some folks not wanting to travel up that way. And so this year they selected Salt Lake City, which is the capital city of Utah. There was hundreds of vendors there, big and small. Lots of variety, from EDC trinkets to fixed blades to folding knives to art knives to, some of the most beautiful handmade Bowie knives you've ever seen. The show's held over 2 days, from Friday, Saturday, 10 in the morning till 6 at night. There's opportunities, I think, most importantly, to spend time talking to your favorite makers. Blade Show in Atlanta is extremely busy and overwhelming, and it really keeps up that pace for the full 3 days, where this show was busy, no doubt, but allowed you an opportunity to really take a look at some of the stuff and get some words in with the people you want to talk to, not only during the show, but after, when people mingle.
How much inspiration do you bring back from the knife show? The shop, what was it? So what was it called?
It's called Blade Show West.
Blade Show. So how much inspiration do you bring back from Blade Show West back into your home, back into your thoughts about your processes on new knives that you're going to make?
That's a great question. For me, I think what I really come back with, maybe not inspiration, but a tremendous amount of motivation, because I get invigorated by seeing all of the cool designs and just reminding myself how awesome my customers are and how neat it is to be a part of the industry and how much I want to stay here, and to stay here, I have to continue to work hard and be successful, or try to be successful, So, I don't get a lot of time to walk around the show and look at other people's stuff. The free time I do have, I like to spend talking with people and learning things about what they're seeing as trends, or how they conduct their business, or just learning more about folks in general, as opposed to really inspecting knives. I mean, if I had time to do both, I would, but I really value the interpersonal relationships that are strengthened and made at these shows, where there's really no other opportunity to do it.
Good. Anybody stood out for you and the other makers then?
That's a good question. I have to think about that.
You also have to be careful about your answer, okay? And think on who you met.
Yeah. What stands out to me, honestly, is just how many incredible choices customers have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just bewilders me that there is so much awesome stuff out there. Like, if this isn't the golden age of knives, like, I don't know what would be considered the golden age of knives. A buddy that I've made in particular, his name's Jacob Ginsberg. He's on Instagram, Jacob Creates, but his name is spelled Jakeb. He's in his early 20s, and he makes these small fixed blades that he sells with a Kydex sheath and like one loop that you can carry on your belt in a horizontal position, but you could also take the loop off, carry it in your pocket.
There are he is putting together some lovely ones. There's some lovely washes on that, Dan. You'd like them in terms of the like the stone washing and the acid washing, etching and things like that. But they're perfect little knives, and they're very like Twisted Assisteds, the Gambler.
It's another trend that seems to be on the rise. The small pocketable fixed blades, EC, and it seems to be really rising at the minute.
But what I'm struck by with these young guys is, like, they perceive things different. They have a different sense of style. They're like, you got guys in their 60s and 70s represent a certain generation. Guys in their 30s, 40s in kind of in the middle, and then these young guys in their 20s, all in the same room.
I think the slip joint community is just growing immensely. And you've been a big part of this latest pulse that's really vibing around the Jack Wolf knives. But it's just, people seem to be excited to get the new modern versions of a slip joint.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot. I can't tell you how many times people came to the table and said, hey, I've been seeing your stuff and I don't own a slip joint yet, but I'm really interested and I'm just so glad to be able to handle these right now, or, oh, I bought my first slip joint and I really like it. I didn't know what to expect and now I want to buy another. Mm-hmm. So it's a classic, and a lot of folks just haven't had a chance to discover it yet. And I think that's one of the things I'm kind of helping is folks discover a classic pocket knife.
Yeah.
And did you buy anything when you were there?
Did I buy anything?
Yeah, did you buy any knives?
I did. I bought one knife from Jacob. I'll show you. It's right here. So this is the small fixed blade. It's kind of got a maroon basket weave.
Love that
Kydex sheath. This like baby blue loop, which you could flip either way. And it's got like a ivory colored, I think it's micarta. I think it's micarta. I'm not, it's one or the other. And it has like a rifle checkering pattern, which you're not going to see on my camera. And then it's got black Cerakote.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Yeah. And this model's, it's called the Chickadee, the model. And it's small, like, it's really a 2-finger deal. Like I can reach to the tip. But the whole point is, literally you put this thing on your belt, you'll forget it's there. People say like, oh, it's so light, it's in your pocket, you'll forget it's there. But that's more of a figure of speech where like literally you will forget this is on. And so I had to make sure, I'm like, I got to take this off because I'm going to leave it on my belt, put my pants back on and walk through the airport and lose it, get it confiscated.
How much, Ben?
This was $225. And he bought a knife from me. So we kind of, we like to support each other in the community.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because he said he wanted a canine jack. And I was like, well, if you're buying a canine jack, you need to set aside a Chickadee for me.
That's happy days. I carry, this one's an LT Wright, a little small.
Oh, wow.
And it's about the same size as yours. It's a tiny little knife. And I can't stop carrying it. It's an absolute wee gem. Really is a lovely knife. The only trouble is it's got a leather sheath. I need to get a Kydex sheath for it.
Yeah. And this one's in 4V, but he's always doing like interesting steels. Like he had Magna Cut ones he made for the show with blue handles. So I don't know. It's really good work. He does some that are machine ground. And he has some that are hand ground. So anybody listening, give him a follow. He's a real nice kid, dedicated to his craft.
Oh, lovely to see. Are you in on this hype with all these different high-end steels, stainless steels, or is it something you're not that fussy about? Personally, I'm not that fussy. I do have them and I do buy them, but I'm buying more for the knife than I am the blade steel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, we're slip joint guys, so we're accustomed to 1095, and I try not to get too wrapped around the axle about it because I see it causing a lot of arguments between people about, oh, this is better than that. Where, like you said, I buy the knife, not the steel. But from the business side of things, you got to acknowledge that it is important to a lot of folks. So I'm contemplating, alternative steel choices for future variation. And I'll probably try to stay more middle of the road than like chase whatever's the most new popular thing, or, just stick with budget steels for the sake of keeping the cost down. I'll probably stay kind of middle high end. I get a handful of requests for a steel that will take a patina from slip joint guys, but that's another thing where I have to say, well, the market, guys buying my knives, a lot of them have never bought a slip joint before. And so is that a bridge too far for folks, a stain on their blade? You don't want to give someone an easy reason not to buy something,
Yeah.
because they're big purchases. So I have to be mindful of what my customers really want. And the modern knife guy, more so than not, wants stainless steel.
Your modern interpretation of a traditional slip joint. It is about the modern materials and the way it's put together as much as it is about the sort of reflecting that traditional old legacy. So
Exactly.
modern steel is comes with that as part of the package, I would imagine.
I think so. There are modern steels that do stain. And so that would make sense on paper. But the question is, how many guys want their blade to stain? And the slip joint guys, they want their blade to stain because it's part of the character. And I think it's amazing. But I got to be really careful. Like that would be something I would have to test the market. And that's not the type of test I'm ready to run right now.
Ben, when are we going to see like a tungsten carbide blade with brass liners, please?
I don't know. Anything's possible.
With like bone handle, brass liners, tungsten carbide blade, yeah, and then like a massive wolf embossed in the middle, which just says, I can't swear on live, so I'm not going to swear. Massive wolf in the middle, which says Jack Wolf, and it's going to be like this big statement. I think it'd be brilliant.
Do they even make tungsten carbide blades? They make tungsten carbide bits for machines, but
yeah, well,
I haven't heard of that.
You're the guy. That's what I'm saying. So if we had like the Jack Wolf with like the wolf on fire or something like that on the bone scales engraved in beautiful brass liners with like this big old tungsten blade, and it just says like, now beat that. You're top of the tree then, isn't you? You've won, isn't you? It's game over, isn't it? Once you produce that and you've already got all the beautiful knives, you've got all the machinery, all the knowledge, then you come along with the tungsten, the bone, the brass with the etched in like Jack Wolf on fire, and it just says like, perfect knife, isn't it? And it's just like the crowd are cheering, everyone's waving, and you've done it. No. I'm only having a joke.
Oh, I know, but that qualifies as your trademark rant for this episode. So that's awesome.
Well, there we go.
Thank you.
You've done it.
Absolutely brilliant.
Do you envisage doing a pinned knife rather than a screwed knife?
I don't know. Like I haven't even had the conversation at the factory if they have the capability to do it. It's a whole different set of tools and labor practices. So anything's possible. Like to do a traditional knife line at some point in the future makes perfect sense. But
yeah, I think even as a special, just to have. But as you say, if it's going to cost a lot to rechange the tooling, that's going to be the killer.
It's just I might have to go find another manufacturer to make something like that for me.
Yeah,
and I have to be careful about what's that.
GEC.
Oh. No, I'd have to talk Bill into doing an SFO for me. He's not really doing them anymore, and if anybody's going to get one out of them, it would be guys like another Northwoods run, or something from Mike Latham at Collector's Knives, because they've been doing projects with him for a decade or more.
Yeah, more, yeah.
And so because he really shut that program down, it would be a big ask. Now I see him every year at the rendezvous, and I could, if I could order enough of them, maybe it'd be worth his time.
Yeah.
That would be a collaboration to speak of, wouldn't it?
Oh, wouldn't it though?
I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also would love it with any other US dealer or maker that would be a nice way for you just to step back into and sort of, it's just another option that I think is worth taking, having a pinned knife.
Yeah, I don't disagree whatsoever. I've got a lot of kind of irons in the fire for just this, variations and new projects for what you see out of me now. And it's a lot, for one guy to kind of keep track of. And so I sort of have this running list of ideas, but I'm trying to stay focused on my core competency so that the stuff I'm doing now, you see it get better, before I branch off into something that I need to also have that get better over time.
Let's not forget as well, Ben, it's early days. I mean, you're not long on this path, so it's I mean, we're only what are we 6 knives in now?
Yeah, so if we count the big bro, which I recall due to a problem, this would be knife number 7. So this is knife number 6 made available to the public. So you're right. I mean, I'm an infant right now. I'm not even walking yet, to use the like baby analogy. And so I really am trying not to get distracted or too far off course, because there's a lot of interesting opportunities that have been presented to me, and also just ideas that, like you just mentioned, that come from others that could easily sort of not necessarily veer me off course, but take me in another direction.
Don't
Don't
let
brass liners and bone handles.
You see, Ben, this is why it's dangerous to talk to these two idiots, because they will distract you from your mission. Stay on mission and keep focused on the core.
Mission
keep
to
on
your
making
heart,
them better. That's what my
bone handles. Bone handles.
Well, I listen to what everybody has to say, but I think we mentioned this in a previous chat, right? Like, I take it all in, but that doesn't mean everything people suggest is what I'm going to do. But I do like listening to what people recommend.
You must be happy with the fit and finish on these knives that you're getting at the minute.
Happy does not describe it, Stephen. I am ecstatic with the fit and finish of these knives.
They're just amazing. Like, I know people say, oh, you're just sucking up the Ben, but you tell me another company that's knocking out knife after knife to this standard.
Oh, listen.
There's nothing, there's not many out there that are doing that to this standard.
Anybody's going to have a hard time picking apart the construction of these knives. Yeah. Now, you can like or dislike my design. That's a matter of taste. Yeah. But as far as the fit and the finish of these things, like, they're absolutely exceptional.
Yeah.
The Benny's clip was extremely well received by any measure. That knife is it's a lot of people's favorite, right? Not just the Benny's clip, but the Lanny's clip in general. The aesthetic appeal of that knife is absolutely undeniable. And so I always had hoped in the back of my mind that would be one of the strongest sort of members of the family, and it proved to be that way in sales. Like the units I sent to the UK, we had sold, Andrew and Frank had sold them all except I think 2 by that evening, and they started sales I think at 7 p.m. UK time. Like, they literally flew off the shelf. By the time I woke up the next morning, they were gone.
It's fantastic.
And pretty much had the same thing everywhere else at all the other stores. I wasn't sure how the Toxic Green would have been received compared to the Arctic Storm, because the Arctic Storm is a very, very strong offering. But that green version outsold the Arctic Storm by a minute or two at every store. So it was really
gorgeous.
The thing that's been the most satisfying for me is simply how satisfied everybody else is with the knives.
Well, being a YouTuber, the one thing that we get maybe that other people don't get is if somebody is unhappy with a knife, you get people talking through your channel and telling you what they don't like and they've been ripped off, or you always get the ranters to come at you. I haven't had one bad feedback on the knife itself. For me, I haven't had anybody complain that they bought it and didn't like it. And that's unheard of.
Well, that's very, much appreciated. And the other thing that I've noticed, because I watch very carefully pretty much any channel I can find, is looking for secondary market or resales. And they don't show up very often at all. That means folks feel, my interpretation of that is that folks feel like they got good value for their dollars. That weighs in the favor of hanging on to the thing. Versus if you buy a knife that costs $600 and you say to yourself, okay, well, I'm going to sell it. Maybe I get 500, 550, but that's okay, because then I can go buy something else.
Yeah.
But what are you going to buy if you sell my knife for either at par or a little bit less? What are you going to buy in comparison? I don't think there's really much to choose from.
No. I mean, there's other makers that do knives around that price. but they don't make enough of them to make it just comparable to actually swap your knife for it, because you're not really gaining a whole lot. You're just gaining another knife. But once people cut with these, I think you're hooked. It's very hard to go back to another knife after you've had the hollow grinders on these. And the M390 seems to be really stable.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've put over 1,000 of these things into the wild. I've not received back one broken blade. Not,
No.
you know, I'm knocking on wood now because it'll happen eventually, right? But not one broken blade, not one broken tip. They're thin, so if you try hard enough, you definitely can break one. But, you know, my friend Corey, he's a master sharpener and he's a bladesmith. And so he sharpened a number of these for me. And they all are very consistent on the stones, and he can get a wicked edge on these things. And you know what? They're just really well made slip joint knives with a extremely well done blade grind.
You could get a wicked edge on them. I vouch that. Can't you, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not a heavy user, but I do cut up boxes and things like that. You know, especially when I'm testing. And I can honestly say that the only thing I've had to do to any of them, to all the knives I've had, is to put them on a ceramic stone, maybe. But if I strop them well enough in the evening, I don't even have to do that. But a spiracle ceramic is just all I've had to, you know, bring them back to life again.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the geometry of these really lends themselves to keeping them sharp and putting them and getting them to go right through material without too much difficulty.
Well, speaking of geometry, given that our latest addition to this has got some unusual geometry going on, talk to us about the latest, Ben. Tell us about the latest.
Okay, so Friday we're making available the Vampire Jack, which is an unusual looking knife especially to someone who doesn't know about traditional knife patterns. And even if you are familiar with slip joints, you might not have ever seen anything like this before. So where does it come from? Well, there are some really cool coffin jacks out there. And I had the pleasure of owning a custom one from a Japanese maker named Ryu Kawamura. And there's also some available that you can buy from Reese Bows. I mean, the Ryus and the Reeses are, you know, $1,000 US or more. I believe there was a Case Bows collaboration coffin jack, which was of course more affordable, but man, those are hard to come by. So anyway, I was always like tickled by the pattern because it is this, I don't know, you know, almost evil looking in a way, sinister looking, you know, and so unusual and so unique with its faceted, you know, bolster and its long, slender profile and its center swells. And I was like, man, there's nothing else that looks like that. And I think more than any of the knives in my catalog, that was the one I wanted to make first and foremost. So it's literally the first one I drew. But there were some things I wanted to change about the variations I had seen or handled. So typically they're really slender, like, you know, not tall this way, but kind of skinny. And they are always double bladed as far as I've ever seen. And so I said to myself, I want mine to be broader from top to bottom, and I want like a dagger-like blade on it versus this really long, skinny, almost like spatula looking thing. So that's what I did. I said my version of this, and I also wanted the coffin bolster on the top because a lot of times it's just a traditional top bolster. I've got it's a stiff spring, guys. It's not too stiff, but it's stiff. And I got the walk and talk I wanted on this one. I got the blade profile I wanted on this one. And I got the handle shape I really wanted. And I'm just tickled pink with it, honestly. Now, the obvious question about this is, are those points going to be uncomfortable in my hand? So
yeah, we all asked that question, Ben. We all asked that question.
Right. So my first response is they're not really points. They're more like humps because it doesn't come to a defined line. It more rolls over. It looks like a point because you see the edge of the scale material, but I would say to anybody listening, it's a hump, not a point. Now could just be semantics, right? But ultimately, the way this knife is designed, and let me qualify this by saying center swell jacks have been around for centuries. So, like, if this design sucked, it would have been gone a long time ago. I can't necessarily take credit for the ergonomics of center swell. But whether you want to hold this as like a 3-finger knife or as a 4-finger grip, that center swell is going to find its way right in between your fingers, and your thumb is going to find its way right here. And it's super ergonomic. Like, it's almost more ergonomic than if this knife was just a straight rectangle, as far as I'm concerned. And I can't really find a grip where this knife is uncomfortable.
No.
You know, like the one on this side just finds its way into the center of your palm. And what people I don't think understand is that because this hump is here, it allows, you know, for folks that haven't seen the inside of one of these, if I took this scale off, underneath this scale, there's a flathead screw flush with the titanium liner. There's one here and there's one back here. Well, that center hump lets me push that screw out to the hump, leaving more room in the blade well for this crazy looking, like Steven called it, missile-like blade.
Yeah.
It is.
This blade does not exist like this without this center hump
Extra little bit of,
and a relocation of the pin. Yeah,
just an extra little bit of space.
exactly.
I don't know where I said it in my first video, Ben, but my wife, who I took this out to, as soon as it came out of the box, I had a look at it and I said, "What do you think of that, Sal?" And I handed it to her and she went, "Oh, I like the look of that one." My wife has never said that about a knife. This dagger, like, I'm going to, you know, this just, what I would say is like nearly aggressive, but not, you know, I don't mean that in I don't know what way I don't mean it, but, you know, it's got that aggressive look, that spear look, that daggery look. And so it was the first one, she said, "I like that." She put it in her hand and said, "Oh, that's very comfortable." And I'm going, like, she's tiny hands to my large. And I just thought, you know, you've hit it. There you go. That's all I needed to know, that this handle is comfortable.
Oh, look at the red on that. Let me see the red again. Oh, man. Now you're talking evil, Ben. Now
Yeah.
you're talking evil. That's the devil's knife itself, that is. That's brilliant.
You know, this red has been extremely well received. And if anybody's interested in this red, I have to simply say, you better be ready when the drop comes, because these ones are going to disappear first.
Oh, yeah.
And fast.
Oh.
Although I like the other offerings as well. The dark matter purple
is beautiful.
It's gorgeous, and it's got very subtle hints of purple throughout. The Pacific blue is really cool. It's a camo carbon. It's just, they're all neat, you know, but taking the temperature of the knife community, you know, a lot of people really like the red.
But I think there's what Stephen was saying about it being aggressive. It's a dramatic looking knife, and that
exactly
the carbon fiber just accents that, adds to it. It just, I don't know. It just puts inverted commas around it and exclamation marks at the end of it and everything. It's just gorgeous, really.
But you know what I found, for me, just looking at the knife, and it just looks like a bullet, you know, or a missile. If you tilt it forward, it has that lovely sleek shape. But to disarm this knife, as soon as you put your hands on it, it's a penknife. There's not much difference between that and the Victorinox. You know, shape-wise, it's not threatening when you put your hand around it. It only looks more aggressive as a whole, rather than you know, it's like something you would see in them daggers. I just, as a work knife, this is the best blade so far. You know, it's maybe not my favorite blade, but as a work knife, best blade so far.
It's really, I found this to be an extremely useful blade. Like, this tip is very acute and will pierce through anything effortlessly. And it's so damn thin that it's just gliding through, and is enough belly on it so that if you're slicing things, your tip's not going to get in the way. You know, it doesn't have as huge a belly as like the K9, so it's not as good, let's say, as a Skinner. But as an everyday knife, man, if you don't want a straight edge, this is the ticket.
I've used
What?
it on onions, tomatoes, everything. It goes through it like a laser. It's an amazing knife in hand. It really is. And as I was saying earlier, Ben, that hands down my favorite blade so far. I just think that is the sexiest blade you've come up with so far. And that's not to say that the others are ugly. The others are gorgeous too, but she's the belle of the ball, basically.
You know,
Well,
I've seen that blade. Sorry to interrupt. On other stuff, but it's nowhere near as good as what that one is. On some of the Boca stuff, they have a blade like that. It's not the same. Obviously, you all guys, you all know what that is, but it it's similar. And now it's like Ben's just gone. Oh, here's how you perfect it.
Yeah.
Here's how it's supposed to be. Hollow grind it, length it out, get the little bit at the back, the copping bit, so you can get right in, get the longer blade, get the wide, the fatter belly. Perfect. It is that. Just that's what it's been bugging me. I've been looking at that blade, saying, "What does that remind me of?" And then I've just thought a couple of Boca blades I've got are like that, but nowhere near as good. And when you look at that, you're like, that's right. That's how it should be. You get that nice leg. You get that nice swoop of a belly. Everything about that, the real hollow grind. Yeah, spot on.
Have you had many people ask for flat grinds?
not many, just a handful. I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of flat grinds on the market, and of course,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with them.
No.
But to me, that's what struck me right away was like, man, if I want thicker stock with a hollow grind, I have no choice but to buy something $500-600 or more.
Yeah.
And it's like at the end of the day, if you're using the knife, like that's where your performance is. It's in the geometry and the grind. And so, wow, that's where I can really sort of establish a difference between myself and all my competitors that are selling production knives under, let's say, $400, especially in a slip joint. Now, of course, you can get a really nice hollow grind on a Chris Reeve, but that's not a slip joint.
Yeah, and the other thing is that most people who are doing hollow grinds are not taking them to this extreme. I mean,
No.
is just phenomenal. It's unheard of to get between 10 and 12 on most of your knives as behind the edge. I mean, unbelievable hollow grinds, and they're stable. I mean, I mentioned that today. When you pick these knives up and you have it in your hand, you know you've got a knife that's not going to let you down. It feels like it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And to be honest with you, I can see no reason why it wouldn't be, because we've all had a mixture of the scale material, but the micarta, if you're going to buy this knife and want to use it, I would highly recommend the micarta, because it's every bit as lovely and warm in your hand.
It is.
Really is a lovely material. And if you're going to work with a knife, I would prefer that over the carbon. And that's why I think this one in particular, if you don't get that fancy color that you want, do not worry, because if you're going to use it, I would highly recommend the micarta, definitely.
Well, the micarta's, I
I
agree with you, Paddy. Micarta's lovely and warm in hand. It is comfortable. It is very, very comfortable. It really is.
Is it a denim
I-
micarta?
no, it's
Linen, I think.
it's canvas,
Canvas.
and this offering is in natural and black. Now, I couldn't agree with you more, Stephen. The micarta, first of all, it's excellently made. It's U.S. sourced. It's top of the line. It's extremely consistent. So, from a quality standpoint, there's nothing to complain about as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The texture is, you have to feel it to understand. It feels like a rope.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
It does.
there's like the satisfaction of that is not to be experienced with the carbon fiber. Carbon fiber just feels smooth. And for someone more practical in their nature, or more, what's the word I'm looking for, like less visual and more tactile, you will be highly satisfied with this. And that's not to say this doesn't look good. Obviously, it doesn't have the color variation of the carbon, but it has its own extremely interesting aesthetic. And over time, it will take on its own unique characteristics with use because of the oils in your hands or whatever it comes into contact with.
Stephen or Paddy refers to that as his filth.
Yeah, it's your filth signature.
Filth
Yeah,
signature. That's right.
your
That,
personal filth signature.
yeah, I can't even claim to that because it was who was the other YouTuber that done that?
It's advanced knife, bro.
Advanced Knife
That's
Bro.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now I really like the natural on this one too because it's a coffin is made of wood, and if this is a coffin jack, it really sort of looks like a coffin in this material. Like this knife would look really good in wood, like real wood. But this is as
yeah,
close as we're gonna get
yeah.
aesthetically.
It
Nah,
would look
speak for
lovely
yourself.
in it.
I want my coffin made of that red carbon fiber from when I go. So
Yeah, no, I have
That
to
would be
say,
something else.
with the though.
I've been really pleasantly surprised how much I've enjoyed this because the last couple I've had, just because of the way it came out, I had carbon fiber. But getting back to this, micarta again has enthused because my other favorite knife to use out of the whole lot is I'll just get it out now, is the sheepsfoot blade, the Barlow in carbon fiber. Now, this was natural. I dyed it red. There it is. I mean, this is just a beautiful work knife. This is exactly the same. This is a knife you want to take out and work. And I think the micarta does that about it. It gives it that really, go lift me and work me.
I think people would be happy with any of them.
Yeah.
Like I get a lot of people, I don't know which one to pick. Which color do I pick? Which one do I pick? Like I know it's a tough decision to make, but ultimately I can genuinely say you're going to be happy with any of them. They all are awesome. And maybe I'm biased, of course, but micarta versus carbon fiber, black versus brown, blue versus red, it doesn't matter. It's like, what color, Porsche should I buy? It's like, they're all awesome,
It's that wee shiny bit at the end that matters.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a couple of wee questions here I want to ask you. It's like a little quick fire, but they're sort of yes, no answers. They're not in detail. They're about the blade shapes that you've done and that are sort of going to come eventually. Of course, we don't know what much further than the 12 you've got. But here's ones I'm going to ask you. Are they in the pipeline? Because they're just blade shapes that I like. A one-armed opener blade shape.
Not at this time.
Okay. A razor.
How's that different from a one arm?
But what I mean is like, what do you say?
Like an actual straight razor?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's that sort of shape with the razor blade with a forward finger choil here.
Hadn't even thought about it, but piques my interest.
I'll
Oh
send
no,
you a
you've done it.
photograph of
Ben, run fast.
I'll send you a photograph of it. That's an Ashley Harrison one. A spay blade.
Yay!
Maybe.
Oh, I love it. It could be the first aid Jack. You could have Jack in a nurse's uniform. No, that's not right. No, sorry. A spay blade as a first aid sort of themed cartoon.
I love a spay blade.
Oh,
it's usually a secondary. It's usually a secondary.
Signal, yeah.
And there's not a lot out. I mean, gosh, does anybody even make a single bladed jack spay? Like it would be so rare. I love a spay blade. That kind of thing though makes me immediately think, would the modern knife guys be interested in it? I know the traditional knife guys would, but is that giving them a reason to pass it up?
Well, you think how many modern knife guys out there who are a lot of people in the services, in the fire brigade, the ambulance service, that are all using knives that get under clothing. The spay blade is also brilliant for that. And I just think it's because you haven't been frightened of going against the grain and making different patterns. And I thought, well, it's an older pattern just brought forward.
Yeah, no, it would be a logical progression. I'm not there yet. I really thought in the beginning that
go ahead.
The clip, the spear, the sheep's foot, the Warncliffe, I think that's all of them, right? Where I would start things before and want to establish myself before I started taking additional risks.
A
Because
drop
I see the one arm, right, and the drop point is the drop point would be the most logical next one, right? And then beyond that, when you start talking one arm, when you start talking razor, when you start talking spay, I put those in the sort of like next tier of, yeah, or of just like less recognizable, maybe more risky from a business standpoint.
The other thing
those.
is, yeah,
Go ahead.
the way you've done the little bro, that size, that number 15 sort of size, are you going to expand on that line of knives? I was thinking more like, a sheep's foot on this size.
Taking cues from the GEC number 15.
Yeah.
He sells that in a sheep's foot. He sells it in a spear. He sells it in a clip. He's never done it in a worn clip, interestingly.
Done a spay, though.
And a spay, correct. Yeah. And a one arm.
Yeah.
Right? So just about every shape, except I got to ask Bill why he's never done a worn clip. Because if you can do the sheep's foot, you can do the worn clip.
Yeah,
but I digress. That little bro, I'd be foolish not to alternate the blade shapes on that sucker over time.
It's just a beautiful size, I think, for a penknife.
Yeah, and I do like the 3.5 inch size.
Yeah.
I was excited to sell the little bro because I wanted to see how the modern knife buyer responded to a knife that small, because that's not very typical size for those guys. And so that data point now is sort of out into the future, unfortunately.
Yeah, the other thing about that is I think it'll sell more to the modern knife collector because he'll want it as a secondary knife, and it's small enough to slip in his fifth pocket or anywhere. It's just perfect size. It's my favorite size anyway. Here's the last one: a two-bladed penknife.
Ooh.
So I contacted the factory, and they can make double implement knives for me. They can do it
on one spring.
On one spring.
Oh,
because that'll keep the thickness and make it just a penknife.
I know what you mean.
It's not a jackknife, then, is it?
No, it's not a jackknife anymore. But nonetheless, the challenge there, Stephen, is the non-symmetrical grinds. Now they could because when you do that, you're fitting two knives in one blade well, and the pivots are in line. So that means the grinds have to be offset. It's almost like chisel grinds, Now, could they do it? Maybe, but that's technically different from the way they're making my stuff now.
Yeah.
Now, the first logical step for me on a two-bladed knife would be two blade wells, single pivot. Probably would do thinner stock on the second blade to try to keep the overall thickness down. Maybe it ends up with a flat grind on the second blade just because we're using thinner stock. I don't know. That'd have to be experimented with.
But then you're talking perfectly a trapper then.
With the spay blade.
Yeah.
With the spay blade, exactly.
A trapper's gonna have two primaries, really. Like two full-size blades. So if I was doing go ahead, Stephen.
My thought was that just a single blade, thinner stock, so that they can fit in together. And you can bring them down to a 2 mil blade. That's going to be thick enough for a little pen blade.
Well, like a muskrat.
Like a muskrat is exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But he's talking about sharing a spring.
Yeah, the muskrat
having a pivot at both ends. I don't see why not. I do like. I think I have to be careful if I start adding blades, people being turned off due to overall thickness, but that solves that problem, and as long as I did it to where you could still pinch both of them open, because that's a big selling point for folks. I don't know. You got my gears turning on that one, my friend. I'll have to think about that.
Ben, you get sucked in every time. You get sucked into these conversations, then he starts giving you ideas. You'll have nightmares now. You won't be able to sleep.
But the nice thing about this is what I think. The nice thing is how often are you going to get the designer in front of you?
That's true.
And if I don't ask the questions that my subs are asking, it's just lovely to be able to do it there and then. And you always answer them fully, which is That's the perfect way to answer them.
Yeah, I live for these conversations. That's why I try to make myself available because, I can exist in a vacuum, but that's not any fun. And I'll be a better creative force if I have some ideas coming my way,
So we've got a muskrat with tungsten carbide blades, brass liners, a bone handle.
Oh, and you know what, guys? I think on that, seeing as Dan has been banging on about that all flaming evening, I think that is probably as good a time as any to start winding this up. Ben, we need you to tell us about when is it coming out for release? How do people get it? For the Midnight Jack or the Vampire Jack?
Right. So this Friday, October 14th, in the United States, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time. In the UK at Frame Our Knives at, I think it's 7+7, right?
7 p.m. Yeah.
7 p.m. The Vampire Jack will become available. We're also in Germany at Tools for Gents, and we've added another shop in Germany called ASW. I'll butcher it if I try to say it in German. Altonair Silber Werkstatt or something like that.
Okay.
Her name's Maxie, and she's awesome. And then, of course, we're in the Netherlands at Knives and Tools. I did want to plug my Facebook group. I started an official Facebook group for Jack Wolf Knives. It's called Jack Wolf Knives Worldwide. It's a place where all the supporters and fans and just anybody who's even curious about Jack Wolf Knives can come hang out. I've got good rules in the group, no politics, no bullying, no BS. I don't have time for it. Be nice or leave. I'm going to do monthly giveaways. I've got a lot of prototypes that are just sitting in knife rolls right now. And I think they don't do me any good there or anybody else for that matter. So I'm going to mark them, something simple and elegant. But nonetheless, we'll be doing monthly giveaways, not just knives. I got a lot of fun ideas. So please join the Facebook group. Cool. I would appreciate it.
Okay, we'll do that, definitely.
Already joined. Okay, everybody, thank you very much to our editor-in-chief down there, wee Judd. He's going to go and get this all sorted out and ready, and we'll put pictures of the knife and all up so you'll see the knife in full. And we'll look forward to the next one next month. Thanks very much indeed. Take care. Night, everybody.